He was born into unimaginable wealth, the kind of wealth that doesn't just buy homes, it buys silence. Robert Durst, heir to a New York real estate empire worth billions, could have lived a quiet life of luxury. But instead, he lived a life of lies, paranoia, disguises, and death. Over 4 decades, Durst was linked to 3 suspicious deaths, vanished more than once, assumed false identities, and walked through the justice system untouched, until a documentary crew caught a whisper he never intended to say out. Loud, a hot mic, a slip of the tongue, and everything unraveled. If you're drawn to stories where wealth hides secrets and power shields crime, like this video and subscribe, because the truth always leaks, even in billion-dollar towers. Robert Durst was the eldest son of Seymour Durst, a real estate tycoon whose family helped shape the skyline of Manhattan. Billions in property, skyscrapers, contracts, power. But Robert was never the heir the family wanted. He was awkward, distant, cold, even in childhood. Rumors swirled for decades about strange behavior, fights with his family, and violent mood swings. Some said it started with trauma. Robert was 7 when he witnessed his mother's death. According to family accounts, he saw her fall, or jump, from the roof of their home. That image haunted him. Some believe it shaped the disturbed man he would become. Others say it was never about trauma. It was about control. In 1982, his wife, Kathy McCormack Durst, vanished. She was 29 years old, a med student, smart, driven, and, according to friends, scared. She had told them she was planning to leave Robert, that he was controlling, that he watched her, followed her, manipulated her. One night she went home and was never seen again. Robert said she left for Manhattan, that she ran off, that maybe she just disappeared, but he waited 5 days to report her missing. His story had holes. Witnesses contradicted him. Her belongings were left behind. Investigators were suspicious. But with no body, no crime scene, and a family with legal muscle, the case was closed without charges. Durst refused to cooperate. He lawyered up. He declined polygraphs. He moved on. Years passed. Kathy's case went cold. Her family was left in limbo. Robert remarried, moved states, and began to fade from public view, or so it seemed. Then in 2000, almost 2 decades later, another death. Susan Berman, a close friend of Durst's and a writer in Los Angeles, was found murdered in her modest home. Shot execution style, a single bullet to the back of the head, no signs of forced entry, no valuables taken. She had been scheduled to speak with police about Kathy's disappearance. Just days later, some believe Susan knew too much, others believe she was ready to speak, but one thing was certain: someone made sure she never would. Shortly after Susan's death, Durst vanished again. This time he reappeared in Galveston, Texas, in a rundown apartment, disguised as a mute elderly woman named Dorothy Sinner. He wore cheap wigs, walked hunched, and avoided eye contact. He lived in anonymity, a billionaire hiding in plain sight, behind a thrift store dress and silence. It sounds absurd, but it worked until 2001, when another body surfaced. Durst's elderly neighbor, Morris Black, was found dismembered in Galveston Bay. His body had been cut into pieces and placed in garbage bags which eventually floated ashore. Durst was arrested. In a twist that stunned the nation, he admitted to cutting up the body, but claimed self-defense. He said they had struggled over a gun. Black was shot. He panicked. He used a bow saw. He threw the parts into the water. That part, he admitted. But not the murder. Incredibly, the jury believed him. He was acquitted. A billionaire had admitted to dismembering a man and walked free. If that doesn't chill you, share this video. Because some crimes wear suits and pay bail. Despite everything, 2 dead, 1 dismembered, and decades of suspicion, Robert Durst remained untouchable. He returned to New York, bought groceries, attended weddings, posed for pictures. The media lost interest. The system moved on. But one group hadn't forgotten: filmmakers. In 2015, HBO released The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, a documentary series created by Andrew Jarecki. The filmmakers had interviewed Durst. He had agreed to participate. believing, perhaps, that he could charm the camera like he had charmed the courts. Or maybe he thought he was smarter than everyone else. But the Jinx wasn't just a documentary. It was a trap. As they filmed, the crew uncovered an old letter Robert had written to Susan Berman years before she died. The handwriting matched an anonymous note sent to police the day of her murder. That note said only one word: cadaver. And it had a spelling error. It spelled Beverly Hills with an extra E. The original letter from Durst, same error, same handwriting. It was, essentially, a smoking gun, a clue no one expected to find. But the biggest break came not from a letter, but from a bathroom. In the final episode of The Jinx, during a break in filming, Durst went to the restroom, still wearing a live microphone. He didn't know it was on. He whispered to himself, pacing, muttering, unraveling. What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course. It was the confession no one expected, and he didn't know anyone had heard. He was arrested the very next day. This time, the justice system couldn't look away. In 2021, Robert Durst was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Susan Berman. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At long last, a sliver of justice. But it wasn't over. Shortly after, Durst was officially charged in the disappearance and murder of his first wife, Kathy. The case her family had waited 4 decades to see resolved, but time had run out. Durst, now frail and sick, contracted COVID-19 in prison. Complications worsened. In January 2022, before the trial could begin, Robert Durst died. 3 deaths, 1 confession, 4 decades of silence, and a lifetime of questions. Durst evaded justice not because he was brilliant, but because he was rich. He used his fortune to hire the best attorneys, silence critics, delay cases, and vanish whenever things got too close. He was a master of the long game, not a killer in the shadows, but a predator in plain sight, protected by privilege. He didn't rob banks. He didn't run scams. He killed quietly, behind doors, with precision, then used paperwork and influence to make it all disappear. For years, the legal system played by his rules, but the truth doesn't stay buried forever. Durst's life was a web of deception. He posed as disabled, confused, or senile when convenient, but behind that frailty was a sharp, calculating mind. He knew what he was doing. He planned, he manipulated, he controlled. He faked his way through airports, signed leases under fake names, wore rubber masks, avoided cameras, avoided emotions. But eventually, he slipped. Not because the system cornered him, but because he let down his guard. For a camera, for a microphone, for what he thought was control. That's the irony. A man who spent his life hiding got caught when he stepped into the spotlight. Even now, after his death, the questions remain. Was Kathy the only woman who wanted to escape him? Was Susan the only friend who knew too much? How many others were silenced in ways we'll never know? Durst died with secrets. But his story is still a warning, a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked, when justice is for sale, when silence is bought, and when the wealthy believe they are untouchable. So if you believe even the richest mask can crack, share this video. Because justice isn't about timing, it's about truth. And sometimes, the most powerful confession is the one no one was supposed to hear.